Hello writers, come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Mykela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. And hopefully the computer doesn't go down again. So I've been waiting on this computer for a while. Anyway, if this is the first time you're joining me, then I'm excited to have you here on my channel. If you've been with me from the beginning or somewhere along the journey, I am super glad you are returning. And I hope you are enjoying writing with me. Today we are going to discuss a few terms or ideas, and then we will add to your story with a setting. The terms we are looking at today are panache, petulant, and pilfer. Let's take our first term, panache. Panache. It almost sounds like a dessert of some kind, but it's not. Panache means flamboyant, confidence of style or manner. A historical meaning is a tuft or plume of feathers, especially as a headdress or on a helmet. Some synonyms are dash, elan, flair, confidence, self-assurance, stylish, flourish, verve, zest, spirit, brio, éclat, vivacity, vigor, gusto, or style. There are several others. There usually are. I usually don't want to put the whole list because after a while it's just repetitive. So there are several others, and you could go and look them up yourself to get more if you want to change up your vocabulary when you're writing your stories. Now, how do we use this in our stories? I'm sure your setting would have something to do with it. Think of the movie My Fair Lady or Pretty Woman. In both of those movies, the female lead had to dress up, and display a flamboyant style with confidence. In My Fair Lady, she had to learn how to speak like the affluent people and not somebody from, the gutter or whatever. I think they called it from the gutter, but she was just like a street person that she sold flowers and she lived day to day kind of thing. And she had a very different way of speaking. Of course, that was part of the theme of the movie, is that you could tell where people were from based on how they spoke. So she had to dress up and learn to speak. So if you write stories with the upper crust, idiom alert, then your characters will need to have panache. Jeans and a t-shirt won't do in these settings. In the Sookie Stackhouse books I'm reading by Charlene Harris, the vampires have panache or flamboyant style. They're always really decked out kind of thing. So leave a comment on a movie where the characters have panache. And if you're industrious, then comment on if the character feels comfortable displaying such flamboyance or style. The character in the Black Pearl, the girl character, she had to put on that dress one time. She's like, I'm sure I need to breathe. So she wasn't exactly comfortable in the flamboyant style. And so leave that in the comments. So if the person just carries it off naturally. I have friends that, they look elegant in no matter what they wear, but they carry themselves like they're so comfortable with it. And here I am in mostly t-shirts and shorts and stuff like that. You put me in a suit and I'm just like, just, I need to be able to breathe. So leave those comments. on different characters. Also, when you leave comments on characters and movies and stuff, it helps everybody to kind of see what I'm trying to explain or what I'm trying to get across. It also shows examples in other people's works of this kind of thing. Panache is used in other people's works. Where is it used? How is it used? So if people want to go see that kind of thing, when you leave your comments, they can go see that and get a broader variety of things than what I could supply, because of course I can't watch everything. I can't comment on everything myself. So, also, leave a comment on if you write stories with Panache or characters in the upper crust of society. Our next term is petulant. Petulant of a person or their manner means childishly sulky or bad-tempered. Someone insolent or rude in speech or behavior. Some synonyms are peevish, bad-tempered, ill-tempered, pettish, cross, impatient, irritable, moody, in a bad mood, sulky, snappish, cantankerous, and many, 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 many more. Antonyms. We don't always do antonyms. Some antonyms are good-humored, easygoing, or affable. Now, in the series Vampire Apocalypse, the vampires in that series were very petulant. None of them were good-humored at all. Archie Bunker in All in the Family was grouchy. And Fred G. Sanford in Sanford and Sons was cantankerous. So, in our stories, are there characters that are never happy? I'm not talking depressed, like sad. I'm talking just irritable and cantankerous and mad. Just not depressed like sad and you can't put a smile on your face because you're depressed because you lost a loved one or whatever, or you just can't make ends meet or that kind of thing. I'm talking about just like being grouchy, you know. So, do we have those kind of characters in our stories? And like I said, I don't mean depressed. I mean irritable or moody. I feel like a lot of shows or movies have antagonists that are petulant. There's just no pleasing them. Especially when the protagonist is out doing good. You can't please them. So leave a comment on a character that is petulant. And leave a comment on if you have such a character in one of your stories. Our final term today is pilfer. I feel like we've discussed this one before. I did go back and look it up. I think the term we discussed before was plunder. And pilfer is similar. So let's define pilfer. Pilfer means to steal, typically things of relatively little value. Some synonyms are steal, thieve, rob, take, snatch, purloin, loot, rifle, abscond with, carry off, pillage, and more. Now, to differentiate, we defined plunder to mean steal goods from a place or person, typically using force or in a time of war or civil disorder. And another definition of plunder is the violent and dishonest acquisition of property. So both terms mean to steal, right? But plunder is with force, while today's term is usually small, unnoticeable. Sometimes employees will skim off the top. Idiom alert, and that is pilfering. If a person or character takes just a little, then it's not noticed. My dad used to have a coffee can where he dumped his coins. And I would pilfer some quarters to get a snack at school. My dad probably figured it out, but he never said anything. Then again, he didn't count how much he had until the can was full, and he rolled up the coins to spend. Was I wrong? Of course I was! Did I justify it to myself? Of course! We were poor, and I got free lunch and free breakfast at school. My dad wasn't paying for those things. I didn't feel like it hurt my dad to get me a snack. So, it's just like, when I was doing it, I wanted the snack. And that meant more to me than, being honest with my dad or whatever. I probably could have just asked him, can I have some quarters? And he probably would have said, oh yeah, go take some. But I didn't. So that's the difference there. And if my children had pilfered from me, I would not have liked it at all. Of course, I didn't have cans of coins, but one daughter did steal. One daughter stole money or pilfered from another daughter. It's like they had their allowance and stuff. And it was $10, which was a lot way back then. That was like 20 years ago or something. It was a lot. I had 5 daughters. We never found out which daughter stole from the one. We were pretty sure. But I think she actually gave the money to a friend to go get something for her. And then the friend, it was one of those kind of under the radar kind of things. So we didn't find out for sure. And I did replace the $10 that the one had stolen, because she had done the chores. She deserved the money. So I replaced the money. And I don't know if that was a good parenting strategy or not. But anyway, I know you feel like I went off on a tangent. I bet you say, oh gosh, she went off on a tangent today. No. What happened in my life, I can use in my stories. Have you ever pilfered something? Leave that in the comments, if you're brave enough. Has someone ever pilfered from you? Leave that in the comments. And leave a comment on how you found out or how you felt. Maybe you didn't know. You just knew something was missing. Like, this is gone. Where'd it go? And you can't find it. So you don't know if it's still missing. Or maybe you saw somebody else wearing your shirt or your shoes or something. And so how did you feel when somebody pilfered off of you? So it's not a tangent when we tell about our lives and our stories, because we can take that and mold it into our stories, or twist it a bit, put it in our stories. And that makes our stories seem more real, because we've experienced it. We know how it feels. Now, that's what we need in our writings. For your stories, think of how you felt on either side of the pilfering. And think, how can you weave that in your stories? Now, this is not plunder. Where an army, big strong army, raids a village. This is just a little, like a few quarters from a coffee can, half full of quarters. This is a waiter or waitress not putting all their tips in the pot to split them up, but saving a few dollars to themselves. Oh, I got $8. I'll take the 3 and put the 5 in the can. If they do that at every table, they're not putting their whole tip in the pot to split. And I think they split it with more than just the waiters and waitresses. They split it with the receptionist or the person that greets you, whatever they call that person at the different places. So that's pilfering. Of course, that's harder to do nowadays, because a lot of people charge the tip on their card. They don't just set the cash on the table. So if you're dealing with cash, then pilfering will be easier. Or say the big boss kidnaps someone and they're getting $1 million in non-sequential bills. And the person delivering the money just takes a few 20s, just a few. He's getting $1 million. So I just have a couple 20s. He's never going to miss it. Right? And I've seen shows where they take out the stack of bills and they flip it like they're listening to it count, and then they're counting all the bills, even though that most likely they're not, but they at least put on the show of doing that. So somebody takes a couple 20s, no one will notice, right? So that makes it okay, right? Not really. I don't support that, but you have to get into the mindset of what makes people do these things. What makes someone pilfer? And part of it is no one will notice. No one will notice. It's not like I'm hurting anybody. You are hurting people, but we justify it to ourselves. But what I'm trying to do is get you into the mindset of somebody that would do that. Now, when I was a young kid, people used to siphon gas out of people's cars. You go get in your car in the morning and it doesn't start because you have no more gas. You got to somehow get to the gas station to fill it back up. Of course, nowadays we have a lock on the gas cap, or the plate that holds the gas cap. So there's a lock there. Sometimes we have a little latch inside instead of the key, but that's there for a reason. People used to steal gas, pilfer gas. So if you have a setting with crops, someone can pilfer an ear of corn or a pocket of purple whole peas. There's your alliteration for the day. No one will notice. You don't go out and count how many ears of corn you have before you harvest. Somebody goes out and takes one. Okay, it's something you can't count. No one will notice that. Does it still hurt? Yeah, because they could have made more profit or whatever and fed their family. So, as a teacher, we had to lock our purses and cell phones in a cabinet. Our students would pilfer things out of them, out of our purses. They would go in our purses. If you had your phone on the desk, students would take it. They would pilfer it. So, you had to watch. If ladies don't have zippers on their purse, pickpocket, easily pilfer contents out of a purse. So leave a comment on if your setting is conducive to pilfering. As we get into more debit cards, credit cards, and digital money and stuff like that, and it's harder to pilfer physical things. Not necessarily harder to pilfer electronic, because there's all kinds of scams where people charge your cards or take your credit card number and they make a new card and sell it to somebody else and they go charge money. We have a lot of protections for those, but they're electronically pilfering nowadays instead of physically pilfering. So leave a comment on your settings if your setting is conducive to little steals. Now let's turn to our writings. Pull out your story with a setting. We don't have a shared plot for this one. We're just going to pull it out and continue from where we left off. I would love to read your stories on this one because we started with the setting. We had that foggy, misty thing, and mine is now into a vampire story. So I don't know if you went for a jog or what you did, or you went into the mist into another dimension, or I don't know what you did with this, but I would really love to read it. Now, for reference, we started this in season 3.1, episode 17, and episode 31. Then we continued in season 3.2, episodes 7, 15, 23, 31, 39, and 47. Of course, all works on the channel, all works shared on the channel are copyright protected. So that's one more reason to send it in, because that will be proof that your writings are yours. When I read to my viewers and I say, John Smith sent this in, and we're going to read John Smith's first chapter today. and his title is blah, blah, blah. And so then you would have proof, because it would be, not only would it be written, whatever you send me, but it would be also online, that it was your works. So that would more ensure your copyright protection. So send them to writewithmykela@gmail.com. Pause the video, write a scene or a page, or at least 500 words, or whatever goal you have. You have 1,200 goal, write 1,200. You have 300, write 300. And come back, and I will read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Let me read what I wrote. The three ladies arrived at the cabin as the sun was going down. They hadn't talked much on the drive up, and now they still didn't talk as they unloaded their things. Kahira noticed the place was spotless, as usual. After everyone put her things in a room, they met back outside and sat in the lawn chairs near the pond. Calista had brought some sandwiches for them, and she passed them out. As they ate, they could hear the crickets chirping, and occasionally they could see a fish jump out of the pond. Dragonflies were buzzing here and there. Then, as Kahira was about to take a bite of her sandwich, she saw a wolf, so she stopped. Surely it wasn't the same as any of the wolves around her house. "Oh my," said Enora. "It is worse than I thought." Kahira and Kalisa glanced at Enora, whom Kahira now thought of as Aunt Enora. Enora motioned to the wolf. Kalista took in a swift intake of breath. "I didn't believe that part of the story, and you skipped it the first time you told me things." Kahira motioned. "But we're a long way from my house. It can't be the same ones that were around my house." "Around your house?" exclaimed Calista. "I don't remember you mentioning that." Kahira looked at the wolf. She could not really tell one wolf from the other. "Can you tell me if you are the same?" Kahira asked the wolf. She noticed the other two looked at her strangely. Excuse me. At least she felt that was how they looked at her. The wolf walked closer and sat down before the three of them. Kahira received thoughts. "I'm not the one who spoke to you before. I'm not the parent of the cub you slept with. I'm not the one that told you where your husband went at night. But I'm part of the pack that guards the queen." Kahira's hand involuntarily went to her necklace. She looked at the other two. Enora motioned to the wolf. "We cannot hear him. I assume we can discuss things outside, since he is obviously closer than a normal wolf would come." Kahira looked at the wolf for confirmation. The wolf bowed his head slightly and then raised it back up. He thought to Kahira, "For now it is okay, but once Victor rises, then it will not be. Hopefully you will learn enough spells and incantations before then." Kahira looked at the other two for comments. "We cannot hear him," repeated Enora. Kahira relayed the thoughts she received. Enora glanced around. "Okay, let's eat and we'll go inside to discuss things. I want to read about Victor. Maybe we can learn when he will rise." She looked steadily at Kahira. "As queen, it will be your job to keep control over Victor, or the humans will suffer great casualties." "What?" asked Kahira. Enora motioned to the wolf. "The pack is to protect the queen. The vampires must have some idea who you are." Calista turned to Enora and asked, "Is that why they went after George?" Enora nodded. Kahira felt overwhelmed. They finished eating and then headed inside to read and discuss things. When they headed in, the wolf went in with them. He would warn them of anything outside that they would need to know about. And Nora had brought a trunk of books. And after reading for 2 hours, she exclaimed, "Ah, here it is! The remnants of vampires are to revive Victor 2 days before Halloween." "That's more than 3 months," stated Kahira. She saw her sister look at her questioningly at her. "George is a neophyte for 3 months." Callista looked at Nora, and Nora sighed. She had to bring them up to speed and fast. Kahira suddenly threw her hands to her face. "Oh my! Oh wow! That's..." "Out with it," stated Callista. "There are a lot of bats," replied Kahira. The other 2 women pushed their eyebrows together and stared at Kahira. Kahira got out her phone to show them the footage. But of course she had no signal, so she powered on the hotspot. Kahira felt her impatience, but the other 2 waited. When Kahira finally brought up the footage, Enora took the phone and stared at it. Then Callista took it when Enora looked up at Kahira. Enora said, "There were more than 100. I'm sure." Callista tried to pinch out the video, but of course it wasn't a picture. "Some bats disappear." The wolf stood up. "How many disappear?" he thought to Kahira. Kahira glanced at the wolf. "I don't know, 30 maybe." "Excuse me." The other 2 looked at her. Kahira told them the wolf's questions. The 3 gathered around the phone and re-watched the footage. "No," said Honora, "there were 40 or 50 that disappeared." "I have to tell the pack," thought the wolf. Kahira let the wolf out the front door, and then she explained to the other 2. Honora then told them that she thought the remnants were a handful, like 5 or 10, or at the most a dozen, not 40 or 50. Then she explained that each elder could turn 2 or 3 humans at each full moon, but they couldn't change more until their neophytes were fledged vampires. Kahira and Callista came to understand that the remnants could change 1 a month, and by the 3rd month the first human change could be fledged, so they could change more. "At that rate, the most of humanity could be changed by now," stated Callista. "How long have the remnants been changing humans?" And Nora shook her head. "I think it has been a while, maybe 20 years. She looked at Kahira. "I know the Manchester estate hasn't had an owner in a while, but we were still fighting the vampires. Victor was the oldest elder, and they put him into stasis to revive him, but I didn't know." "But 50 times 20 years times 12 months in a year," sputtered Callista. "I can't even do that math in my head." After half a second, she said, 50 times 20 is 1,000, times 12 is..." And Nora held up her hands. "Hold on. Let's not extrapolate things like that. Not all humans survive the change, and the vampires get picky about whom they will accept. Sometimes they will infiltrate humans for a while before picking one. Second, a human that survives the change doesn't automatically become fledged in 3 months. That's just the quickest amount of time, and that's the length of training. After that, the neophytes have no more lessons. If they don't become fledged, vampires see them as less. Are fledged vampires able to be seen in photos and mirrors?" asked Kahira. She saw Callista look at her, and she knew her sister was thinking. She was putting things together quicker than she had. But of course, Kahira had read part of the diary. "Fledged usually means some abilities, but not all the abilities of an elder," explained Enora. "Neophytes are learning the basic abilities. But they can all already become bats, stated Callista. They can travel very fast. We can't counter that. And Nora smiled a knowing smile and gently placed a hand on Callista's arm. Dear, we need to start at the beginning. They sat on the couch in the armchairs, and Nora started telling them things, including flying on brooms and having glamours and wards. It was a lot to take in, but after midnight they all climbed into bed, and they would start reading through the books tomorrow. They had a week in the cabin, and then they would have to plan how to continue things. Kahira realized that Nora knew a lot and had lived through things before, but she was still very nervous. Callista wished that the wolf had thought that Enora was the queen and not herself. She didn't know why she was queen. Hopefully that answer would come, or she could pass the torch to Enora. Okay, writers, that is what I'm adding today. It was around 1340 words. Leave a comment on some history you would add to my story, or maybe a layer of being a vampire. I now have the neophytes and the fledged and the elders, but I'm sure there should be, between the fledged and the elders, there should be a layer or two, or three, whatever. I just have to decide what I want to do with it. But the history, you know, how did the Kahira and Callista's mom die? Was it with the vampire wars? Would that scene ever come in? How did that family get involved with the vampires in the first place? You know, tell me what history you would add if you were writing this version of the story that started with this setting. Join me Friday for Eleni's Pride, Gaining Freedom, Chapter 2. Join me Tuesday for some more jargon. Leave a comment on a term you would have me discuss. We discussed 3 today: Panache, Petulant, and Pilfer. So that was our 3 P's today. We've done 3 C's before and stuff like that. So just tell me of a term that maybe you find a word and you're like, oh, this is an interesting word. Let me give it to Mykela and see how she would use it in a story. I'm sure you can come up with things. That's not the deal. The deal is that your ideas are different than my ideas. So if you give me the term and I tell you my ideas and then you kind of mix it with your ideas, you'll have more to play with. And then if you tell me your ideas, I'll have more to play with. So that's the thing, is we both can think of things, or all of us can think of things, but what is that other person thinking? What's that other perspective? And that's what we need. So leave some terms for me to discuss. There's so many words and so many ideas out there. Or if you have an idea for a writing prompt, you can leave that in the comments as well. Maybe we'll drop the down soldier or something and put in a different one. Maybe not. Who knows? You'll have to tell me if you like the down soldier or you're getting bored with that one. I have to amp it up. Don't forget to visit my website, bymykela.com, and read some character bios and send your writings and chapters to writewithmykela@gmail.com. Leave comments on your favorite characters. Visit my coach's website, authorkristenlamb.com, and read some of her blogs. Leave a comment on something of hers that you found helpful. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell, then we will continue to write together, and other people will have a higher chance finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.